for joining us today at our third Exploring Careers in Economics event. I am Quentin Johnson, Senior Economics Outreach Specialist in the Division of Research and Statistics here at the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System.
And I'm Cassandra Duchan. I'm a Senior Research Assistant here. And welcome to everyone who's joining us again.
I have to say that I am deeply, deeply appreciative of the continued interest and spirit of collaboration that I have experienced all over this country in my 2 years here at the board. The increased exposure and connection students have to the board, its mission, and career paths in economics has been a pleasure to help provide. Cassandra, do you mind sharing a bit more about your path in economics?
Definitely. So to be honest, I kind of chose economics on a whim. I knew that I liked math and I knew that I liked social studies, so I thought that's like a good blend of that. But when I got to the principles and intro classes, they did not click with me, and maybe some of you are going through that now. I struggled a little bit, but luckily for me, I took upper level classes that I ended up falling in love with. So I took a development economics class and a class about the economics of inequality and discrimination. And those classes really showed me that I can use economics to help people like me and have a really meaningful impact through economics. So after my first semester of upper level coursework, one of my professors invited me to do an honors thesis with her, which if you all have the opportunity to do that, I would definitely recommend because it gives you a lot of exposure to the research experience. But something else that she really encouraged me to do was apply to the American Economic Association summer program. And if you haven't heard of that, it's a program that's supposed to increase the diversity in the economics field, and it's a really great program. It really exposes you to the research and also the coursework of an economics PhD. So when I was there, my now Fed colleague, Lil Shoemaker, was recruiting, and she did a great job of exposing us to what the Fed does and like the breadth and diversity of what the Fed can do for somebody like me who didn't have so much of a background in research and was just starting out in the world. So over the past 2 years, the RA position has really helped me grow into who I am today, and I've been really grateful for it. I've gotten to do research and also applied policy work specifically about low-income communities within the United States. And through this work, I've learned about community development that serves Americans. So now I'm in the process of applying to MBA programs, and I want to lead a bank that does consumer lending for low-income communities in the US. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Outstanding. And so today we're going to hear from board financial stability employees, RAs, and highlight some of our successes from the outreach and mentoring programs we have here at the board with economists and RAs. The Fed is unique in that we have over 400 economists and 150 RAs. Our goal today is to give you insight into the economics profession and its role at our institution, and as that relates to financial stability.
So we want to invite everyone to look at our videos in the About section of federalreserve.gov. We have several short videos to give you all an idea of exactly what the Fed does, our key mission, and our functions. And while on the site, I encourage you to take a look at the first recording of Exploring Careers in Economics event in the Education tab of our video section.
Now, before we hear from our presenters and panels, I would like to give a brief introduction of our keynote speaker, Stacey Tevlin. Stacey Tevlin is the Director of the Division of Research and Statistics at the Federal Reserve Board. She oversees economic analysis, forecasting, and research related to the domestic economy and financial markets. Several major economic measurement programs, such as the Industrial Production and the Survey of Consumer Finances, and research and analysis in support of the Fed's financial stability, supervision, and regulatory activities. She is also responsible for briefing the FOMC on the outlook of the U.S. economy. The FOMC is the Federal Open Market Committee. Stacey started at the board back in 1995 as an economist and held a number of positions in R&S, leading teams of economists helping to produce the staff's forecast of the U.S. economy. From 2014 to 2016, she also served as special advisor to then Vice Chairman Stanley Fischer. Stacey's research has focused on business investment and the macroeconomy. Stacey received her BA in economics from Northwestern University and her PhD from MIT. Without further ado, I'd like to present to you all Stacey Tevlin. Let's give her a round of applause.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. Before I start, I just want to apologize that I seem to have left half of my voice at home this morning, but I've got this microphone, so hopefully that you'll all be able to hear me. So welcome to the Fed, and welcome to Exploring Careers in Economics. It's great to see so many enthusiastic faces of people who are contemplating the economics profession. I was very honored to be asked to be the keynote speaker because I think this is a really terrific event for the economics profession, and I hope that it's a terrific event for all of you as well. When I was growing up, I didn't know what economics was, and I certainly didn't know any economists. I grew up in a working class town right outside of Detroit where the auto industry was a heavy influence on the economy. While I was growing up, there were 3 recessions, and it was a pretty hard time for Detroit. It hit the car industry hard. Global competition was also picking up, and it was just generally a tough time. A lot of my friends' parents worked for the big 3 automakers, so it felt like it hit pretty close to home. Eventually, I went off to college, and I originally thought that I would study engineering and math, and then I took a macroeconomics class. And in that class, I learned about all the things that I had lived through. I learned about recessions and recoveries, about job loss and downsizing and global competition, and I realized that because I had a really personal connection to how these things affected families and communities, that this is something that I really wanted to learn more about and really invest my time in. So I changed my major and became an economics major. I went on, as Quentin said, to get my PhD from MIT, and I've spent all of my career at the Fed. In my day-to-day job, I give advice to policymakers and help them understand what's going on in the macroeconomy. And I have to say, I'm one of those very lucky people who spends my days doing work that I love. So macroeconomics is really what grabs me. But overall economics is much broader than that. Fundamentally, economics is about how we're going to allocate scarce resources like your labor and effort, your money, land, and all kinds of resources, and how we're going to distribute the proceeds to households and communities and businesses and other people in society. Economics helps us understand just all kinds of questions, more questions than you can possibly imagine. It helps us understand whether cigarette taxes will reduce smoking or increase vaping, why some countries make laptops and other countries make coffee, why left-handed baseball pitchers make more than righties, why a life-saving EpiPen can cost a family $700, and why some neighborhoods provide much better opportunities to its residents than other neighborhoods. Economics gives us a set of tools to answer all of these questions and many others. But you know what economics can't do, and that's it can't decide what questions need to be asked. And that's why we need people like all of you, because we can only answer the questions that someone thinks to ask. We need creative, thoughtful people to decide what are the most important questions facing our communities, our country, and the global economy. And of course, it works better if we don't all ask the same questions. And that is more likely if we are not all exactly the same. We need people who come from small towns and big cities, who have parents of every income level. We need people from every race and ethnicity and background. And we need new ideas to help us use our economics toolkit to answer the most important questions. So today, you're taking the first steps to decide if this is the field for you. I hope you learn a lot today, and I hope you ask a lot of questions. And whether you decide that economics is for you or not, I hope you will continue to ask those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacey. Oh, no worries. So now we're going to move on to our Economist Panel section of the morning, and I would like to extend a warm welcome to our 2 economists, Christine Dobridge and Levant Alteneglu, to please join us here. Give them a round of applause as well, everyone. Give a brief intro to the 2. Levant Alteneglu is an economist in the Division of Financial Stability at the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. He was born in Sydney, Australia, to Turkish parents and grew up largely in Scottsdale, Arizona. Prior to joining the board, he was a postdoctoral fellow at Columbia University. He received his bachelor's degree in economics from Carnegie Mellon in 2010 and his PhD in economics from Boston University in 2016. Christine Dobridge is a senior economist in the capital markets section of the Division of Research and Statistics here at the board. She previously worked at the board as an economist in the Division of Financial Stability. During the U.S. financial crisis, Dr. Dobridge served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Macroeconomic Analysis and a Senior Advisor for Economic Policy at the U.S. Treasury Department. She has also worked as an economist for Deutsche Bank Securities Incorporated and served on the staff of the Council of Economic Advisors. She holds a PhD in finance from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, an MA in economics from New York University, and a BA in economics from Wellesley College. We're going to roll right into our questions. So, Levent and Christine, where does your interest in financial stability topics and economics come from?
Thanks so much, Clinton. And again, I'd just like to say how great it is to see everyone here today. So my interest in financial stability topics came from my time at the Treasury Department working during the financial crisis. And leading up to the crisis, my background was more in macroeconomics. That was my training, and I had worked in macroeconomic policy for a number of years. But during the financial crisis, working in the Office of Economic Policy at Treasury, it became apparent how quickly the financial distress in markets and in financial institutions was spilling over to the real economy, into job losses and into foreclosures and into bankruptcies, on all of these issues that were so widespread across the country. And so that's what really sparked my interest in studying finance and studying the interaction between finance and the macroeconomy, and in just my understanding of the importance of financial stability issues really to everyone in the country.
Thanks first to Quinton and the organizers. It's a wonderful event and happy to be here. So my interest in economics, I would say, started pretty early. So in high school, I was really interested in history. And over time, I began to realize that in order to have a good understanding of history, you have to have a good understanding of economics, especially macroeconomics. And so in college, I majored in economics. And then in 2008, I think it was my junior year, there was the global financial crisis. And that was obviously a huge event at the time. And I remember, being kind of fascinated by this idea that here you have, the most advanced financial system in the world, and it employs thousands and thousands of very smart, highly educated people. Yet somehow, it failed very dramatically and spectacularly, and so it was a big question. Wow, how does that happen? What's the underlying cause? And so it was always in the back of my mind after that, and then gradually I became more and more interested in these types of topics.
Outstanding. So we heard briefly from Dr. Tevlin about the diversity of thought, the diversity of experience, and the diversity of backgrounds that are necessary for the work in economics to be much more robust. How would the two of you characterize an increase in diversity benefiting the accomplishment of the mission of financial stability?
So I think diversity is very important for at least two reasons. One is more generally, anytime you have an economic problem that you need to find a solution for, having a diversity of perspectives allows you to attack the problem from angles that you wouldn't otherwise think of. And of course, having people from diverse backgrounds, coming from different communities at the table, that can help to bring those diverse perspectives to the forefront. And then more specifically to macroeconomics, which is my field, I think it's particularly important for macroeconomics because, again, going back to the recession, so the recession 10 years ago had very different effects for different communities. And so to have kind of a deep understanding of what are the consequences of business cycles, recessions, financial crises, it's important to have people from those communities trying to answer these questions.
Yeah, and I'll add that diversity is always about, as Levent said, bringing people with different backgrounds and different perspective and different training to look at the question and from a variety of angles and try to produce the best analysis. With financial stability particularly, I think bringing a diverse group to addressing these questions is especially important because financial stability risks can be very hard to identify. They could be risks in specific institutions, they could be risks in particular financial products, they could be in specific sectors of the economy. And I think having a variety of backgrounds really helps in terms of thinking about how we can ferret out those risks that are hiding in the economy. And I think for financial stability, one of the challenges and one of the enemies of financial stability is groupthink, everyone thinking in the same way, or is complacency about, okay, things look okay. So you need people from a diverse background thinking about these different questions and bringing a variety of angles.
Outstanding, and thank you for that. Now, we've talked about how that diversity of thought would help with financial stability and the mission here at the board. However, I'm interested to find out what are the different types of professions and broader opportunities that you might consider if someone out here in the audience was interested in a career that can help with overall global financial stability.
Certainly. So I think within the economics profession, it's important to realize that there are a variety of fields within economics that touch on financial stability issues. And so you can work in a lot of different economics fields and still have an impact on financial stability. So you can be in macroeconomics, or you can be in finance, but you can also be in studying banking, you can be studying consumer finance or housing finance. So you shouldn't think that there's just one part of the economics profession that studies financial stability issues. The second thing is that, in my experience, I think an economics background and economics training provides a very strong analytical background for going into a wide variety of fields. Even if you choose not to pursue a PhD in economics, you can take economics training and apply it to the legal profession. You could work for a regulatory agency, you could work writing regulations, you can work in supervision of banking institutions, you can work at an institution doing risk management, developing financial products, selling financial products. I think even thinking about becoming a teacher and educating students and improving financial literacy broadly. So that's another initiative we have here at the board, improving financial literacy. All of these things are important for accomplishing the financial stability mission that we have here at the board and that's so important for the country.
So I agree with everything Christine said. I would just add that so obviously the Fed has an important role to play in global financial stability, but in DC in particular, there are other institutions that play a very important role. The IMF, so International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, those are all international institutions. And then you have other governmental institutions like the Securities and Exchange Commission, the FDIC, and I can go on, the Treasury. So those all, there's a number of career opportunities that you would have if you're interested in working on these issues. One thing that I would encourage you to do, if you have an interest in these topics, or even if you're not sure, lots of these agencies have internships, including the board, at different levels. I think some have at high school level, but certainly at the college and postdoctoral level they do. I was, I guess, an intern here while I was doing the PhD. I think Christine was as well. So those are obviously good ways to get exposed to what it is that these institutions do, what economics, macro, finance, what all these things are. And even if you're not sure what you want to do, this is a good way to kind of help you guide your thinking. I guess related to that, I would also encourage you to keep an open mind as to what you want to do. It's very early. So I've been studying economics for 10 years, but I only got interested in financial stability issues more intensively only in the last few years. So it takes time to figure out what you're actually interested in. So I would encourage you to keep an open mind about that.
Yeah, I'll echo what Levent said about really exploring your options and getting your feet wet, kind of trying out different opportunities at this stage in your career through internships or through trying to have conversations with people in different professions to get a sense of what you like and where you want to use your skills in the future. I think that will really help you shape your career.
Outstanding, thank you so much. And we'll talk a little bit later about internships here at the board and the ways in which you can find out more about them and about internships more broadly across the Federal Reserve System. And for my fourth and final question, I asked this of all of my economists on the panel. Are there any economic principles that come up regularly in your work or that you feel would be important for our audience to have an understanding?
Okay. So one economic principle that I think is fundamental, especially to the work that we do, is this concept of economic externalities, or you can think of it as a market failure. So what that means is that it's the idea that if you leave free markets completely unfettered, then you may have outcomes which are not in the interests of society at large because of this idea of economic externalities. So let's say I'm a financial institution. My decision to borrow or to invest in, I don't know, to take certain risks, that might have that might have an effect on the likelihood of a financial crisis occurring sometime in the future, but I might not fully, internalize or fully take into account the effects that my decisions have on the well-being of, people in the event of a financial crisis. Because financial crises are very costly. You have millions of people who are unemployed, they can't find work, things like that. And so the fact that I may not necessarily fully account for the implications of my actions may mean that there's a role for a regulator to step in and place, some limitations, well-defined limitations on my ability to undertake these activities in a way that will help the financial system, perform its function, efficiently and effectively. So in some sense, this principle is kind of what justifies the existence of regulators to begin with, I would say. So it's very important.
Sure. So I think there are two principles that come to the forefront of my mind. So the first is doing fact-based, data-driven analysis, and the second is the concept of comparing costs versus benefits in analysis. So in terms of fact-based, data-driven analysis, here at the board, it's our mission to look at economic questions with fresh eyes from an unbiased perspective, to give the most thorough analysis that we can based on economic principles, based on what we know about economic theory, and based on what we can see in the data. What are the data telling us? So I think it's really important to come at any question without any preconceived notions and say, what is the data telling us? What are the different sides of the issues here? And I would encourage you to do the same thing when you're asking questions and when you're hearing statements. Well, is that true based on the data? What do I see? Or what does the economic theory tell me? What might the other factors to think about be? And then in terms of always thinking about cost versus benefit in the back of your mind. As policymakers, I think this is particularly important. As Stacy said, economics is about allocating scarce resources. And so in terms of developing policies, it's important to always think about the benefits of the policy, but also to weigh the costs of the policy and to think thoroughly also about if there are going to be other externalities imposed, kind of what is the very broad perspective on implementing a different policy. So those are two key items that stick out in my mind.
Outstanding, and thank you both very much. We're now going to transition into our RA panel, but as our economists are leaving, I would like for us all to give them a warm round of applause and thank them for their time. Our RA panel will consist of 3 RAs from the board, and it will be moderated by my co-host, Cassandra Duchesne.
Okay, so the purpose of this panel is to get perspectives of those who have recently entered the field. So I think all of our RAs started here right out of college, so you'll get that perspective of a recent grad. The RA program is a unique opportunity to get exposure to working full-time in the economics field. And there are RAs in 8 divisions across the board, so that means that the jobs are really diverse, but they're all really vital to what we do here. Like we mentioned earlier, there are 150 RAs here, so you can really kind of find your best fit if you decided to come here. And now we're going to talk to our RA panel. So we'll start with Tricia Biswas, who is our senior RA from Financial and Macroeconomic Stability. Tricia, can you tell us where you're from, your undergrad institution, and what you studied?
Hey everyone, so I'm from Maryland and I went to school at University of Maryland, College Park. I know some of you guys are from there too. I graduated in the spring of 2018 and I majored in economics with a minor in statistics.
Great. So we'll go to Deshaun next. Deshaun Vaughn is an RA in macroprudential policy analysis. Deshaun, what about you?
Yeah, so I just graduated in May, and I studied, from the University of New Mexico, and I studied mathematics and economics.
Thank you. And then last but not least, Grace Spring is a senior RA, also in macroprudential policy analysis. Can you tell us about yourself, Grace?
Yes. Hello, my name is Grace. I'm from Minnesota. I went to the University of Minnesota, graduated in spring of 2018, and I studied economics with minors in statistics and Spanish studies.
Awesome. So let's learn about more of your journeys. So we'll start with Deshaun. Like many in the audience, you had to make tough decisions on what to study. What drew you to economics?
So I think the big thing that drew me to economics was that around the financial crisis, both my parents lost their jobs. And what followed was kind of like the worst years of my life. And well, that sucks to say in a sense, but when you look back, or when I look back, it gave me a unique perspective on how people, their happiness and their way of life and the economy are all connected. And so when it came time to pick a major, it was really an easy choice.
Thanks for sharing that. So for all of the panelists, you all probably had a lot of options after college. Why did you choose to come to the Fed?
So yeah, I can start with that question. I was very fortunate to have a couple internships at the Minneapolis Federal Reserve, one of the regional banks. So the summer before my junior and senior year, I was working there as an intern. And right away, I just really, really appreciated the collegial environment that I felt was fostered. There's so much collaboration across business lines, economists and research assistants and interns and business analysts. Everyone got along really well and worked together in a really positive way. So right off the bat, I loved the Federal Reserve System as a whole. And then my senior year, I was contemplating doing a PhD in economics. And I learned about this research assistantship, which is a 2-year program kind of designed for people who might be considering graduate school. And I felt like that was the perfect opportunity to figure out if this was something that I truly wanted to pursue versus maybe working like at a bank or like in a corporation, because I knew I really liked economics but wasn't sure where to put in my resources. And so I decided to come here, and I'm so happy that I did.
Yeah, so I applied to the Fed because I really wanted to get my PhD in economics eventually, but I was unsure if I had enough research experience and technical skills to succeed in a PhD program if I got in. And so the Federal Reserve, I felt, offered the best combination of development types for me. So getting involved with research that I really cared about and developing coding skills and practical skills like that was really important to me, and it seemed like the best opportunity.
Yeah, so my answer is very similar to both Grace and Deshaun. I knew I wanted to do a PhD in economics, but I also knew that I wasn't fully prepared for it. I wanted to get more experience in research, so a lot of my professors, they told me that like being a research assistant at the Fed would be a wonderful experience and would give me like the right skills and preparation for a PhD.
Thank you all. So for Grace and Deshaun, I'll ask, what surprised you most about working here at the Fed?
Yeah, so I guess I was surprised right off the bat with how much autonomy we all have. We're able to complete like a lot of the analysis that the Federal Reserve produces. I think that's really, really cool. It's not just collecting data and doing mindless work. It's like you're doing really cool, important analysis and bringing it to your economists and working really closely with them. So I was really surprised at how much work we were actually responsible for. And I was also surprised at and really pleased about how much our economists and bosses support us in our personal development. Even if we end up not being super interested in like financial stability, that's the division we're all in, they are so well connected across the board, they can direct us to other economists, other research areas, and they support us in all of those types of endeavors and also in all of the Fed's outreach programs. Like, I think we're all involved in one of the Fed's outreach programs called FedEd, which Trisha's actually a leader of. And we go out to high schools and we teach classes and we bring students to the board. It's a really great program. And my section is super supportive of that. They really want us to give back, and I've appreciated that so much. So it's not just about the technical work and producing research, it's about so much more and like a greater sense of community, which I've loved.
Yeah, so I'll echo a lot of the same sentiments that Grace said. But I think the biggest surprise for me was like how much open scholarship is going on. Like by that I mean economists are always presenting their ongoing research in front of different departments, different people, in front of RAs, and this is always happening. They're bringing economists from outside the board, people from across the country, from different countries. And for me, it was inspiring because you see these economists who are really some of the best in their field. They're trying to get better, and so they're bringing in unique perspectives to do that. And so that, for me, has been really cool just to sit in the back and geek out at that.
Okay, Trisha and Grace, could you talk a little bit about your day-to-day?
Yeah, so I have to say one of the majority of the time I spend here at the board, I do a lot of programming. Never in a million years did I think I would ever be doing programming, but honestly now that's like one of my favorite things to do. I absolutely love it. And so we do a lot of data collection. We learn a lot about very important macroeconomic variables, data sets. In addition to that, it's not all just staring at a computer. As Grace mentioned, I'm one of the FedEd leaders here, and you guys got to meet some of the wonderful volunteers. So part of FedEd, we go out to a lot of high schools in this area, and I think some high schools are here today. They had a few volunteers over the last week. And so we also bring students here, and we do tours of the board and meet the chair as well.
Yeah, echoing what Trisha said, a lot of my time is spent programming and coding, which again, I also never thought I would do. I took one computer science class in college, and I'm very thankful that I did because that is most of our days. But I've also found that most of the technical skills you need while you're here, you'll learn on the job. And so once we're technical skills aside, I feel like one of the most important skills is time management. We're really lucky to get to work with lots of different economists and different officers in our division, and they all have their own separate research agendas, and then there's also broader policy type work that we're all involved with, and we're a scarce resource in ourselves, and so everyone's coming to us asking to help with their work, and we have to be able to manage our time and make sure we're meeting everyone's expectations and getting the work done that needs to be done and prioritizing accordingly. So I felt like those skills I'm honing just as much as the technical skills that I'll walk away with.
Definitely. Okay, so for Deshawn, since you're the most recent grad, what resources would you recommend for undergraduate students who want to dive deeper into economics?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing I'd recommend is to talk to your professors. That was one of the biggest things for me because they'll give you an idea of what classes to take, what are helpful, what will give you a perspective of what econ grad school will be like. And another thing is the American Economics Association summer program that Cassandra mentioned earlier. It's a great opportunity. And also econ Twitter, if you just search #econ Twitter, it's awesome. There's always debates and ongoing things on there. And there are also a lot of RA opportunities. Two of my friends got RA-ships at Yale and Stanford because they saw something on Twitter, which is really cool. And yeah.
Awesome. Okay, and so for the two RAs who are leaving us sooner, what are you doing now to prepare for a career in economics?
Okay, sure, I can start. So I was thinking PhD when I came to the board, and that thought is still in the back of my mind, but I'm not applying this round. So I'll be approaching my 2-year end mark in this coming summer. So I'm not applying to PhD schools right now. Maybe I will next year, but I took a class in preparation for that. I took a math class last year at GW, which was great. The Fed is really supportive of you developing personally and professionally, like I mentioned earlier, so they were really happy to have me take that class. So I did that to prepare, and I tried to get involved with lots of research projects, and I think I've just decided that I would have a stronger application if I waited a bit, if that is what I end up wanting to do. But I also feel like we have a really unique perspective getting to work with so many different experts in their fields, and I feel like we're all so young, and getting to learn about all these like intricacies of the economy, of banks, of financial institutions as a whole, of financial products. Like I would have never learned these things if I wasn't here. So I feel like I could also have a really unique edge going into like the private sector if I wanted to, having worked here. So I feel like I'm excited to see what this year brings for me, but I'm not sure what that will be yet.
Yeah, so I'm currently in the process of applying for PhD programs. Right now, I'm working on my research proposal for the National Science Foundation's Graduate Research Fellowship. So what they do, if I get lucky and win, they provide funding for your PhD. So I'm working on that right now. But also, like Grace said, I also took a math class at GW, so the Fed is very helpful with that. And I've also been working with a lot of economists in my section and with the potential of a co-authorship. So economists will come up to you and ask like, hey, do you want to work on this project with me? They're very helpful. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your insights, and for you in the audience, if you have questions about the RA-ship, these are the folks to ask. So if we could give everyone up here a round of applause, that would be great. Feel free to go. Okay. So, good. Okay. So, the Fed is committed to connecting with those who we serve, and along those lines, we have various programs to engage with those outside the board. So from Tricia, who is here, she mentioned FedEd, which is an outreach program that outreaches to high school students and high schools in the DC area. And now we'll hear from two people involved in our Coffee with an Economist program, which connects economists with interested students. And we'll have Joanne Shu and Akila Ford.
Let's give them a round of applause as they come up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joanne Shu. I am a principal economist in the Division of Research and Statistics here at the Federal Reserve Board. And I'm here to talk to you about the Coffee with an Economist program. This is a program that links local students, college students in particular, and links them up with an economist, one of the 400 plus economists here at the board, just to have a coffee. And it allows students to pick the economist's brain, talk about how they got to where they got to, and ask for any advice. It's really very freeform and allows students to, students can drive the conversation if they want. So I'm here with Akila Ford. Akila was my match from Coffee with an Economist. I think we met your sophomore or your junior year.
Junior year.
Your junior year, and you're now a research assistant here. So why don't you talk a little bit about why you decided to sign up for this program and what you've gotten out of it.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Akila Ford. I am a research assistant in the same division as Joanne, Research and Statistics. And I signed up for the Coffee with Economist program my junior year. I was taking one of the programs that the Fed offers, this Econ 181 class in R, and this was another program that they offered after that. And I just thought it was a good opportunity to find out the point of view of a policy economist rather than an academic economist. So I signed up and was matched within about a month with Joanne, and it's a very low stakes conversation. You're just paired up for one coffee and you can guide the conversation as is. I came with probably 20 or so questions about how she got to where she was now, the classes she took, her graduate program experience and how she ended up as an economist at the Federal Reserve. So I think the best thing about the program was it is very low stakes. Like after the one conversation, you don't need to do any more, but I chose to continue it afterwards. Because as I matriculated through college, I went to Howard University, by the way. Every semester, I figured out some new questions that I wanted to find out, and I still had that contact with Joanne that I can just email her and ask, hey, I have some more questions. Would you be up for some coffee? And I think that was probably the best part of the program for me, that it's super low stakes, but the contact is still there, and you can take advantage of it as needed.
And now we work together for some time. We're not in the same part of the organization anymore, but we're continuing to have coffee now.
Yeah.
All right, thank you both very much.
Oh, no.
So we've heard from a number of folks today about the work that they do with the Fed, their paths here to the Fed, their interest in economics more generally, and you can see how tightly knit that relationship can be. I told Cassandra I was going to talk briefly about our relationship because I met her when I went for the first time to the AEA summer program, and she was already an RA here at the board. And from that interaction that we had with the students at the AEA summer program, we were able to recruit and successfully attract Deshaun Vaughn here, and he's now on the panel. And Cassandra has decided on what her path is going to be post the board. It's not a PhD, it's exactly what she wants for it to be, which is in serving the community through banks themselves. And I'm just so elated that these are the young people who several years ago were in the same positions that you all are here in this room and across the country. They might not have known about economics. They might not have known about the past that exists therein. But through this exposure, through these relationships, and through the network and the community that we're building here in this room today and that are being created across the country in watch parties and that will live in perpetuity on our website with these videos, you can find your path. You can figure out what works in economics for you. You can figure out if it's something here at the board. You can figure out, like Levent said earlier, if it's something at one of our other regulatory agencies across the country, or maybe even the IMF, the World Bank, whatever it is, there's a place under the umbrella of economics for you. And even if you decide to go, let's say, outside of economics into the classroom, guess what? You can have an impact there too. I look out in the audience today and I see educators, I see students, and I see all these individuals who have led their paths today to the board, and that does my heart justice. I'm so excited to have you all here. I'm so excited that you've taken this next step in your path to a career in economics, and I'm so glad that you had an opportunity to hear it from others who, just like you, are following that path. You heard Grace talk briefly about her internship at the Minneapolis Fed, and that brings up a very important point, that opportunities like that exist across the entire Federal Reserve System. I would like to direct you all at some point to the fedeconjobs.org website, which serves as an information portal to all 13 of the organizations within the Federal Reserve System, and on resources that they have there for internships or research assistant, research associate, or research analyst positions. You can find your place here at the Federal Reserve. You can use FedEcon Jobs to find it. You can even use the resources that are here in this room today. We have opportunities for you to engage with us online as well. If you go to our career search page and you look up just the interns search in and of itself, over 40 opportunities are out there. We have economics research internships with a deadline of October 15th. And then we have internships across the entire board itself. We have some for the summer, we have some that are year-round, but find the place that works for you. Maybe your connection to economics might be through marketing. Maybe your connection to economics might be through research. Maybe your connection to economics might be through IT. Those experiences are available for you. I encourage you to go seek them out. Go to our job search page and see what those experiences are. We also have a number of pipeline requisitions that are there for you from schools with which we've engaged across the country. Fill out a pipeline requisition. Put your name in that hat. Let us engage with you further so that we can continue to develop the diversity that's required in our talent pools to bring those perspectives here to the board. Because you've already heard just how important those perspectives are, and you've already seen how those perspectives can be empowered here and how they can then go out and do greater good for everyone here. I also want to let you all know that we do have an upcoming research assistant fall recruitment cycle deadline of October the 15th. For those of you across the country who are interested, please go to our website, federalreserve.org, and in the search tab, just look up research assistants. It'll take you to the page you need for everything there about applying. Our spring cycle starts up October 21st. The application deadline is January 31st, so you'll have time. But the important thing is that you find out about that opportunity. And you've seen what can happen with that RA experience here. I'm standing next to what can happen with that RA experience in the transition that they're making away from the board. And it does me so much justice to know that these are the things that we have available for our young people here at the board. Also, I wanted to let you all know about the Econ Outreach at frb.gov email, where you can engage with the outreach specialist, myself, and others here at the board about opportunities that exist and how you can apply for them. We'll be able to use that as a resource moving forward, and we just look forward to connecting with you and being in touch after this event. We're now going to be moving towards closing, but I definitely wanted to take the time once again to let you all know that if you don't hear from anyone else, you can hear it from me. We value you here at the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. We need you here at the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, and we want you to engage with us further. Thank you all so much for joining us. Take care and have an outstanding day.